Welcome to our third production seminar this season. I'm very happy to see you all today. I guess we're having the walls closed today. I think that's because we've been working in the theater. I think I know many of you. I'm Francesca Zambello, the Artistic and General Director, and I'm going to introduce everybody here who's part of the Passions team. To my left is choreographer Jessica Lang, conductor of the choreographer for Stabat Mater, actually this is a double bill. This is Speranza Scapucci, who is the conductor for the Stabat Mater, Beth Goldenberg, who is the costume designer for the Stabat Mater and the Little Match Girl Passion, Marjorie Bradley Kellogg, who is the set designer for the two pieces as well, and David Moody, who is the conductor of the Little Match Girl Passion and who is also our chorus master for the season for the other shows, Flying Dutchman, Camelot, and King for a Day. So we are all here. We're only missing our colleague, Mark McCullough, who I think many of you met during the discussion about the Flying Dutchman. So just a word on the pieces, and then I'll hand it over to everybody else. This is a really interesting, I think, double bill. I think it's interesting, of course, because I programmed it, so of course I think it's interesting. But it was a way for me to address a lot of things that I wanted to have in the season. And it's tricky because we only do 4 new productions every year. I wish we did 5, but we do 4. And so this was a way to have a Baroque work in Pergolesi's Stabat Mater, as well as to have a contemporary work in David Lang's The Little Match Girl Passion. Following on the success of Armide last season and the response to the Baroque dancers, I wanted to integrate more and more dance into our season, so I thought it would be interesting to have the Stabat Mater as a dance work, although of course there are 2 singers, Anthony Costanza and Nadine Sierra, and so that was the reasoning behind that. And then the Little Match Girl Passion, David Lang is an interesting and important contemporary composer. He's the founder of Bang on a Can, which is one of New York City's most important ways of hearing contemporary music. He received the Pulitzer Prize 2 years ago. This year he was named Musician of the Year by Musical America. And this short piece that he wrote, which was inspired by the Hans Christian Andersen work, the short story of the same title, was a piece that originally was for chorus. And I talked to him about, I said, I really am interested in enlarging our children's chorus at the theater. It's something that's important to me. We've been trying to build it up more and more. Would you consider re-envisaging the work for children and for soloists? And so he did that, which meant some little moving around of things. And he also, we commissioned him to write a prologue to it, which is about 4 minutes long. So he wrote a prologue for our Glass Festival Children's Chorus. So there's a world premiere. So basically we have kind of a 400-year between the 2 pieces, but they both are around a central theme, which are both inspired by, let us say, the Passions. Whether for David, he was inspired by St. Matthew's Passion, and Stabat Maters, of course, Pergolesi falls on the heels of other successful Stabat Maters, and he also inspired The Way for More to Come. So that's how we got this interesting double bill that features 25 local kids, 8 dancers, a countertenor, I think, you name it, we got it here. And so that's where we are today. So I thought I'd let everybody talk a bit about their collaboration, their partnership in the piece. First and foremost, for me, when I wanted to direct the Little Match Girl Passion, it's a short piece, 40 minutes, I knew that I wanted to find some interesting choreographer to come here, and so Jessica was someone whose work I was interested in, and when we met, she seized on the idea, and I'll let her tell you about her response to when I said, what about the Stabat Mater? So over to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much. Well, if I can share our meeting in your kitchen, which was so nice, we spoke a lot about how I do have a diverse background in who I work with. I can work with really established principal ballet dancers of some companies like American Ballet Theater, but I also have a very strong background in education and teaching. In teaching dance and teaching non-dancers how to move through space. So that was one of the things that that Francesca, I believe, was really interested in my background, so that I could take the musical theater dancers and try to make them do something a little bit more contemporary ballet, modern. It's bridging, it's really dance. And when I didn't know what the project was yet, and Francesca took my book and said, well, I don't know if you know music well, but you might know this composer, and simultaneously was writing P-E-R. And I was like, Pergolesi? And she said, yeah, but do you know his? And she wrote S-T, and I was like, the Stabat Mater? I sounded really brilliant at that moment, I must say. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. And then I responded so enthusiastically, because actually Pergolesi's Stabat Mater is one of my favorite pieces of music. I had actually choreographed previously in a different commission years ago. I used 3 of the movements, so I was very familiar with the music, and I knew it was a dance piece. And what excited me even more was taking these 2 singers and incorporating them in and among the 8 dancers. So my idea was that, you know, the Stabat Mater, and Speranza can speak more about the music, but it's 12 songs, it's 12 verses, and the first 6 describe what happened, that Mary was standing at the base of the cross while her son hung there, and it keeps saying things like this, and then he takes his last breath, and between 6 and 7 it becomes a prayer about to Mary, as opposed to a visible Mary on stage. So I've made the dancers, I haven't made one dancer be Mary, and I didn't make the singers be Mary and Jesus, because they're actually kind of the narrators. They're singing what has happened. So we've done this in a way by incorporating some costuming with a piece of fabric, and they keep interchanging the veil, and that's like kind of iconic, obviously, of who Mary is and what she looks like. And the second 6 verses are a prayer. It's our prayer. It could be anyone's prayer, and it's to Mary. So we've definitely made this distinct 2 different parts. And the singers are really involved in the movement. I kind of wanted them to appear as if they were everyone as well, and it's kind of about everyone. It's not too specific, and I think that's really kind of going to latch on to a lot of people emotionally, and you can kind of feel a part of it. It's timeless and beautiful.
There's the music quarters and the visual quarters. I'll get to you in a second. I just think it's interesting that the challenge for the designers was really how do you connect 2 pieces visually, and I'd love Marjorie, if you'd talk to that a little bit about how we take 2 very disparate works and give them a unified space.
Well, I think that the first thing was to find a mood that suited both of them. And interestingly, despite their years apart, they felt to me very similar in mood and in purpose, in their intent to look at grief and to look at a community celebrating but recognizing and ritualizing grief and death also, and finding an atmosphere that was at home in meant that it had to be something a little timeless, but not so neutral that it had nothing for the emotions to grab onto. We looked specifically for Francesca's piece, we looked at ritual spaces as research. All sorts of ritual spaces. We looked at churches and synagogues and meeting houses, and even the occasional, I don't think I ever showed you, like Stonehenge and things like that. But places that people come together to experience deep events, deep emotions, and that was the beginning of my process. Anyway.
Beth?
Hi.
I would like to say part of what I've been trying to do at Glimmerglass is bring very experienced artists here, but also encourage people who have come up through our ranks. And Beth started in our costume shop and is now the costume designer for these two pieces.
It is a pleasure to be here. So with the costumes, with the costumes, there are differences between the two worlds. It seemed important that Stabat Mater has a more streamlined, elegant feel, and that there's more texture and it's more texture to the world of the Little Match Girl Passion. But you'll find there are definitely echoes from one piece to the other. Both are about this community coming together and acting this ritual event. So in creating the tightness of the community through things like color palette, in the way that they wear their clothes, the garments that are used, as well as the veil imagery that Jessica brought up, which is prominent in the Stabat Mater, but we also see echoes of it at the end of the Little Match Girl Passion.
We're trying to get some through line between the two pieces, not just dramaturgically, but some visual cues. Now, musically, they are very different worlds. Speranza, talk a bit about Pergolesi and this piece and where it is for him and his world.
So, Pergolesi, the amazing thing about Pergolesi for me is that he belongs to the so-called Neapolitan school. So, although date-wise you'll find that he enters perfectly the Baroque period, and we consider him a Baroque composer, he was actually the composer within the Neapolitan school that broke away from the formulas of the Baroque music. So you'll find in his music, for example in his not so successful operas, that it's much more direct music into the words. He was the one who invented comic opera with his intermezzo, La Serva Padrona, which was performed between acts of tragic opera. And the Stabat Mater is really his iconic piece. And what he does is that with the text in Latin, he creates, with just 2-3 minutes of music every movement, around maybe 1 or 2 key words, he creates an atmosphere. And there is no, how can I say, flourishing. I'm making words up because, I speak good English, but sometimes I just make them. There's no embellishments, it's just direct. So for example, in the second movement, when the text says that Mary stood in front of the cross as if pierced by a sword, we get these violent 2 chords out of nowhere. So the melody goes yam bum 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 yam bum. And those yam bum for me are the sword.
What about the singers?
The singers.
I mean, you can have 2 very different voices.
Yes.
Talk about what we have.
It is written for 2 female voices. But of course, at the time, they could be done by so-called castrati singers. So it's completely appropriate to use a countertenor as the mezzo line. They have solo pieces, and then they have lots of beautiful duets. The colors of the voices are very important, and I think that the winning factor about this team is that Nadine and Anthony have voices sent from God, and they blend so beautifully together. It's
And the
impressive.
orchestra?
The orchestra is only strings plus organ. You can be done in several different combinations. Could be done with just a few instruments, with lots of strings. We are doing it with a very chamber music group, but no bells.
We have bells and Little Match for this.
So we're going to do it with 8 violins, 4 violas, 3 cellos, 1 bass, and an organ. And I think what it'll create is the intimacy of this piece. It's only 8 singers, only 8 dancers, 2 singers, small group, but the music I think will be very intense, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, what I heard is very beautiful, very
And
passionate,
may I add just one little,
just 2 sublime voices.
I want to add one little thing,
Out of the way.
which is that I started my professional career as a pianist and coach here at Glimmerglass in 2000. I was the pianist on Bohème, on the music staff, and I'm making my American opera, professional opera debut here as a conductor. So, thank you.
So, David, when we talked about this last year, we met with composer David Lang, who will be here later in the summer. He's over at Mass MoCA right now. But we talked a lot about how we make it for children. And David, tell them a little bit about, we've got our 25 kids
Yes.
and 4 adults, and talk about the orchestra or what we're doing for the orchestra.
Well, the orchestra, well, first the 24 kids, and this is still a miracle to me, but we've recruited from, here, a chorus of 24 children who signed up to learn this very difficult music and who march in every day in high spirits and work hard and remember things quite well and have really begun to enter into the spirit of this piece, which is complex. The story of The Little Match Girl is complex. What it asks of us as observers, as it were ritual listeners, is complex. And the kids, I think, have very much entered into the spirit of that. And it's been interesting to see their role change as the chorus, as it were, the sort of classic Greek chorus, if you like. They comment on the action and are eventually drawn in to the story. And they ask the questions that we ask of ourselves in the story and witnessing the tragedy of the Little Match Girl. They act, as it were, as our conscience. Why has this happened?
And the orchestra?
Well, the orchestra is made up of a quartet of solo singers who themselves play percussion instruments on the stage. And this is one of the glories of this piece. I'm talking about narrative and the sort of ritual aspects of both of these pieces. Something that they share absolutely is this sort of ritual aspect. And in the Little Match Girl Passion, this is made explicit, I think, through the use of the percussion instruments, which are played by the soloists themselves. And this is a gesture that feels very ancient to me. It's like gathering in a community, any community, and a narrative or a story, an epic, will be punctuated by and sort of navigated by a drum, or bells, or chimes. And each of the soloists has an instrument to play, and in the final movement they come together as an orchestra. This is one of the singular challenges of this piece, of course, because to tell a singer that you'd like them to come and sing a terribly difficult piece of 21st century music, while at the same time playing a glockenspiel, which you've never played before, perhaps.
And it's a tenor.
And he is a tenor.
And he's amazing, Michael Porter.
But actually, we've got lucky, I have to say. He's really fabulous, good-humored, intelligent guy, as are they all. But he has the most difficult part to play as an instrumentalist, and he's just the guy for the job, I have to say.
Great, thank you, David. Thank you. So that's a bit about drawing together these works, and I hope you see how they fit together. And we don't really know yet because we haven't seen them back to back, but we feel like they fit together. Especially, we are very blessed that we have opened our new rehearsal building on Route 20 this summer. So we've been able to both be rehearsing on we have 2 rehearsal spaces there. It's located in the town of Warren, and that's 20 questions if you know where the town of Warren is. And it's before Richfield Springs. And we're very blessed to have this building. We're very grateful to the state of New York for state funding and for Senator Seward for helping us get this funding, because now we have our own rehearsal building where we've been in one room and they've been in another, and it's been great to check in on each other. So that's a bit about the pieces. I'd love to take questions from the floor, and I'll repeat the questions. If not, we'll just keep talking up here. Yes, Ed. Hi.
If you've got the singers playing instruments, I wonder if you ran into any, dare I say, union?
Ed asks if having the singers play the instruments, we have union issues. No, it's cited in the score that the singer plays it. So I don't think that the union would take umbrage with that. I mean, there are certainly other issues in other times in opera where composers have stated that, I mean, you know, Papageno plays the flute, you know, I mean, Mozart did it first, you know, where singers are supposed to be playing an instrument on stage. So, no problems, and let's keep it that way. Yes, Tom, and then the gentleman behind him.
Will the set be, is this the set?
Is this the set? This is actually the set for the Little Match Girl Passion. This, you want to talk about this, Marjorie, this front piece here, and
This is part of the set for.
talking to the microphone.
It's part of the set for Little Match Girl. There's also all the instruments, and which are become part of the space, and benches that the children move around. These two big diagonal pieces here are shared between the two shows, and they're on tracks and they change their position. We wanted a more intimate space for Little Match Girl, so they're kind of pulled in for this show, and they open out and become less symmetrical, less centered for the Pergolesi for Stabat Mater. And then there's other scenery for Stabat Mater in addition.
And then the rest of the scenery, Little Match Girl, the kids create it, actually. There's a question behind you.
My question is about the philosophy and then the technical aspects of you're not amplifying the voices. And certainly the last piece with 24 children, immature voices, is going to have to project. And I'm wondering how it's going to happen.
He's asking about amplification and having 24 children. Well, I mean, we had children last year in Music Man, the year before in Carmen. None of them were amplified. I mean, the children's chorus, it's a bit of a misnomer. I mean, there are different kinds of children's chorus. There are what we call in opera voci bianchi, which means white voices, which is what, for example, the shepherd boy is in Tosca. That's a boy soprano. Whereas this score is actually written for a children's chorus, meaning the kids are from 2nd grade to 12th grade. So most of the boys' voices have broken. They are young baritones and young basses. All the girls are sopranos and altos. So the kids, it's not a conventional children's chorus like Tosca, Carmen, Bohème, you know, Vuoi la tromba. So we do not amplify. We do not amplify. I mean, I say this like all the time. We do musicals. They're different here because we don't use amplification. You're welcome. Excuse me, sir?
Could you expand about the philosophy of doing it and the acoustics here?
Could I expand about the philosophy of doing the piece?
No, doing it without amplification.
Doing it without amplification? Well, it's an opera house. We have great acoustic. It's wood. You've got wood all around you here, wood on the ceiling, wood on the sides. Of course, you know, we do, like, for example, the set for the Flying Dutchman, I talked about how that was on wood and a rake. That was to help the voices. This arch here will definitely help the kids' voices. There's a wall behind them. I mean, we purposely didn't put the kids out in open space because you want scenery behind you to help project to the voice. And of course, they're not singing over an orchestra. So I think, you know, honestly, today's the first rehearsal on stage, so fingers crossed it's going to go well. They're pretty loud, those kids. They make a lot of noise. They're pretty loud. And of course, there are also the 4 adults who quartet, who certain numbers are just them, and sometimes they're singing with the kids. So I feel pretty confident it's going to be okay. If it's not, you'll let me know. Let me know what you think. Okay? Yes, a question back up there in the front row of the back? You've got your hand up, or you're sewing, I can't tell, you're sewing back there. Okay, fine. All right, yes. Is there a reference in the set to stars that the grandmother becomes, yes, you've read the story recently, thank you, that the grandmother becomes a star. Hans Christian Andersen talks about how the grandmother, when she dies, becomes a star, and then, of course, Mr. Antoine Saint-Exupéry used that idea about 100 years later.
I think the answer to that is not really.
Well,
although-
star feeling, I would say.
What you can't really see, because the table's in the way, but this floor is really painted in a kind of star field design, like some of those wonderful images that we get these days from the satellites, the Webb Observatory and things like that. So it is really sort of a star image.
And there are, the kids act out the story. They take the role of the little match girl and of the people passing her by and of the grandmother. Again, without it being literal, again, a lot of it is very suggestive. Some is narrative, like in the first person, some is in the third person, like David was saying, like Greek chorus commenting on it. I think it's, you know, it's, again, we're in process right now. We're in the discovery phase still, so if we need to start, we do have matches, and I think you would appreciate this story. I'll just tell the story very quickly. It is illegal for children to light a match on stage in the state of New York if they are under 18. Illegal. Psst. No, it's a federal law. But we are very fortunate that we have very good practice, thanks to Abby Rod, our head of production, who has kept us well protected and safe, and so we have a good relationship with everyone. So we have had a number of meetings with local commissioners who have given us special permission to let the young girl who is playing the little match girl light the matches on stage, which is an integral part of the story, and we're doing a lot of thinking how to do it without that. So we're very fortunate, but so know that there are like 10 people back here with fire extinguishers and fire blankets when this little child is lighting a match. Other questions? Yes, in the back?
I have a question.
Let me just right back there. Yes, ma'am?
The painting, or the scenery, to me, almost looks like flames. Is that what it's?
The scenery almost looks like flames.
What we were looking for with this particular wall was to find a kind of visual equivalent of a sort of ruin, of tragedy, of destruction. So flames, perhaps, I sort of did think of it as an upward movement. Perhaps it was a little more celestial in my mind than actual flames, but if you see flames, that's very good, because that will, I think, enhance your enjoyment of the piece.
Yes?
I have a question for this land. What kind of mood are the dancers supposed to convey to the audience regarding Pergolesi?
The question is, what kind of mood are the dancers supposed to convey to the audience?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. I think the mood of the music is something that we latch on to, of course. As a dancer and coming from just dance, our body is physicalizing emotion, and that is our instrument, and we are kind of one with the music. And one of the things that I actually struggle with is some of the lighter sounding music and the text that is still so sad and so depressing and so angstful and mournful, and if I can share what our countertenor said about the fourth movement, he called it the crucifixion hoedown. Not to offend anyone, but it is hard to, that's, when you see like a waltz, or I see movement directly related to music, and it's hard to fight what that, music makes us, but all of us, we kind of sway, we have rhythm in our bodies, so when we hear a rhythm, we want to move like that, but the text is fighting, not fighting with it, because I think Pergolesi did an amazing job, like I'm his critic or something, but he, I think when you really dig deep into it, that's why our relationship is so important to me, because I will turn around and continually ask her about text and the meanings, it's just really important for me to stay true to the text, because I know that's where Pergolesi started. So I want to remain true to that. The mood is one that is it's empathetic, and it's sympathetic, and it's soft, and it's quiet. At times it's also really painful, but in the end it's also really beautiful. And it's not something that I feel like you walk away feeling like I can't wait to see something happy, because in the sadness you actually do see something beautiful that makes your spirit feel something like just an exhausted exuberance. Like it's something really beautiful in the end.
It's, for most of us who are more opera-centric here, reincorporating dance into opera, which of course they were one world together in the 17th century, 18th century, really into the beginning of the 19th century. And even, of course, Verdi, we know, used ballet so much, but opera and dance were very synonymous with each other. And it's really just been in the last 150 years that we've had this sort of separation. And so I'm so excited from what I've seen of how the dance it activates this music and makes this music have an incredible poetry, which of course it has anyway, but another way into it. I think last couple of questions, and then we got to get to rehearsal. Yes, in the back, sir? All the way in the back, you're wearing a white shirt, I can't see you more than.
A marvelous countertenor. I was told today when I mentioned I had heard Russell Oberlin sing in the 50s that they didn't have many of them around then. How many of people like that are around today?
You have great projection. Everybody hears your question. Make that answer a question about the acoustics in this space.
Actually, there are lots of countertenors today. There are very few really good ones. And I think that we are extremely blessed to have Anthony here, because I honestly think his countertenor voice is on top.
He began his career here as a young artist.
I mean, he's just
He was our first countertenor young artist. And so we're of course happy to have him back.
And it's, I have to confess, I'm a little bit skeptical about countertenors, because if their voices are not well trained or don't have a natural beauty in them, it can be painful to listen to. So when I found out that there was going to be a countertenor, my first reaction was like, oh, and then I heard him through YouTube, and he's just like, it's heavenly, and his voice matched with Nadine, who is also heavenly. We sit in rehearsal and I conduct them, and it's a dream, really. I mean, we make music together, and they give me and I give them, and it's like this circular energy going on. So I feel really blessed to have both of them on.
I don't know that countertenor. Russell, what was his name?
Yeah, I don't know him either.
Russell Oberlin, who was
Do you know him, David? Is that?
I mean, he was one of the pioneers, as it were.
Oh, right, okay. I'm gonna have to do some YouTube studying. I also want to say another thing about the Pergolesi. It's the first time we're presenting a work in Latin. Stretching our boundaries as ever, we are now presenting also in Latin. Last question? Okay, I think we're good, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today, and I just want to say one thing, which is that this piece is definitely different and unique, and I hope you will help me by going out and talking it up and really getting the word out there. And also for all of you, please know that July is the month to get your friends here to visit. Yes, you have a question there?
Well, I just wanted to follow up on what you were saying about getting your friends out here.
Getting your friends out
Yeah,
here.
you and I and Elsie had talked about faith conversation around this piece. Okay.
Come on up. I'm going to give you the mic, and I'm going to watch your step here. Come very carefully here. Can you introduce yourself? And
Cynthia Walton Levitt, I'm pastor at the Red Door Church in Oneonta. Elsie Rhodes is pastor here in Cooperstown, and the three of us, First Presbyterian, thank you. And the three of us have cooked up this idea last year about the faith communities conversations. This year it's centered around this piece, the Passions. Thursday, July 25th is our picnic, supper, and conversation. We're not sure exactly who among the artistic team will be joining us for the picnic, supper, and conversation. It will be in the pavilion where the CCAL class was earlier. And at 7:30 are the two one-act operas.
and we have special pricing.
Right, special pricing, right, it's group pricing, but somebody asked me, do you have to pay for the picnic? No, unless you want to buy your picnic here from one of the concessions. The picnic is free. If you're seeing the Passions another night and you want to engage in more conversation about it, just come for the picnic. Make sure you come to the Passions. Although, I think seeing it twice would not be a bad idea.
4 times. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Yes, we did start something called the Faith Community last year around Lost in the Stars. And we had a wonderful group of pastors and ministers who brought members of their congregations from all over the area to engage in discussion around social issues that many, many operas touch upon. This obviously is not like last year where Lost in the Stars dealt with racism and apartheid, but this is obviously something that deals much more with what we conventionally think of about the scriptures. And so I hope that you would join us on Thursday, July 25th. Come at 6 o'clock, come for the picnic, come for the show, come see the show. If you have tickets another night, come that night as well. So thank you so much for jumping up. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. We have one more of these on July 5th. Our season opens this Saturday night with the Flying Dutchman. A week later is Camelot, and the week after that opens King for a Day and Passions. All of our lectures and meeting at the Pavilion series start kicking in mid-July as well. So I look forward to seeing everybody. Lots. Please be here with us. Thank you so much.